Hi everyone! Welcome to this week's episode of Hand the Mic Over. I'm your host, Mavish, and today I have a very special guest with me. Today's lovely guest would be great to talk about her experience growing up in Toronto from a culture we've had a brief introduction to in our Brampton series. If you haven't seen that yet, be sure to check out our previous 3 episodes. Now, back to this episode. I am so excited to have her on the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Maryrose. I am a Filipina-Canadian. And yeah, I'm excited to be here with Mevish. I'm so excited.
Oh, me too. Maryrose, for any people who might be listening who aren't familiar with where the Philippines are in general, could you give us a little idea of where on the world map it is?
Yeah, of course. So basically, the Philippines is an Asian country. It is in Southeast Asia. It's under Japan. It is somewhere around there. All I know is that we are in the Southeast Asian part of Asia.
Okay. And what general age range are you from?
I am 19. Whoa.
I think you're one of the youngest guests we've ever had on the show. So, do you know which languages are spoken in the Philippines?
We have our main language, which is Tagalog, and then we have a lot of dialects. We have Ilocano, we have Waray, which is my dialect, we have Bisaya, and there are much other dialects that I'm not too sure of. But yeah, those are the ones that I know, and the people that I know speak the most.
Wow, that's a lot of dialects. I didn't even know. Do you speak any of them?
I know how to speak Tagalog, the main language, to an extent. The language that my family speaks is Waray, but Waray and Tagalog are pretty much the same, just some words are different.
Is there any word in Waray that you can teach me?
Hopefully. There's a slang in Waray. I don't know if this is specifically for Waray speaking people, but all I know is charot, which means like, oh, it's just a joke. Like, I'm just joking. People in my hometown, they say charot or char for short. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you say it? Charot?
Charot. It's Charot.
Okay, charot.
Yeah, okay, Filipino.
Let's go to the Philippines right now.
Literally.
Was Tagalog/Waray your first language that you learned to speak?
I was actually born here in Canada, so my first language was English, even though I'm not really good at it. It's English.
Okay, so around what age would you say you learned to speak Tagalog or Waray?
At a very young age, I learned how to understand Tagalog, but I was not very fluent in it. Now, I'm starting to try to speak more Tagalog because I am going back to the Philippines in March, so I'm trying to be more confident in my language speaking of Tagalog. But overall, to answer that question, probably now.
Oh wow. Growing up, did you ever visit the Philippines when you were younger?
I did, yeah. I visited a lot. Every 2 years, we would go back to the Philippines.
Did you find it hard to communicate with people there?
Yeah, of course. Actually, sometimes, because people in Philippines also study English as well. So some people would understand me, some of my other relatives wouldn't. So there's definitely a language barrier.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're still not very good at English either. What do you mean by that?
That's just me being silly.
Okay. No, English definitely has a lot of rules. I think it has the most exceptions.
Yeah,
It's very inconsistent.
It's too much, y'all. I need to breathe.
So, do you have any memories of the Philippines?
I do, actually. Majority of my memories that I had were good, but this one was kind of bad. So basically, when I was in the Philippines with my family friends, they were my dad's neighbors, and we were walking around, and then there was this girl who was her classmate, and she was, I think, bullying me, or I don't know, she was saying, I was pretty young, so I didn't really understand, but she was saying bad stuff, and my family friend told me to slap her. I know that's really bad, but that's kind of the only memory that I recall right now because I remembered it midday today. But there are definitely some other memories that are nicer.
I'm so shook right now.
Philippines is a good place, y'all. It's just the only thing I remember.
Okay, I guess we'll get into your happier memories in a bit. But before we move on to that, I was wondering, what kind of neighborhood did you grow up in? Like, what area of Toronto What was the sort of demographic of the cultures there that you grew up with?
So I grew up in East York, which is a very Filipino community. The neighborhood that I grew up in, and especially in the apartment that I grew up in, I swear every floor there was Filipinos. My superintendent was Filipino. My elementary that was in my neighborhood, majority of the classmates there were Filipino. There was a bunch of Filipino stores in my neighborhood, so it is just a very Filipino place.
Okay, so you were definitely not a minority growing up.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like your idea of Canada or your idea of Toronto was different from people who were not growing up in your neighborhood?
Yeah, because as a kid, I always felt accepted because I grew up in such a Filipino community. And I was listening to your other episodes of where people felt the opposite, and it was just kind of, upsetting.
Yeah, for sure. Was there a point while you were living here where you felt like being Filipino, you were a minority in Canada or in Toronto, or your culture wasn't really properly understood?
No, not really. Whenever I walked around the city and people knew that me and my family were Filipino, they would say Filipino words like, oh, hello, like mabuhay and stuff. And I felt like my culture was very welcomed in Toronto. I never felt that it was misunderstood. Maybe sometimes in my elementary, yes, but I'll add on to that later.
What about right now?
So basically in elementary, as I said, there were a lot of Filipinos, but a lot of them were Filipino immigrants. So my friends and I who are Filipino, we were born in Canada, so we're Filipino-Canadians. Majority of the new kids in the school would be Filipino immigrants. These new kids would be popular. And because of that, me and some of my friends included didn't really feel as Filipino compared to them. In my elementary, being Filipino was kind of like a trend. Like to be like all the popular kids were Filipino immigrants, and they would speak Tagalog openly, and then they would sing the Filipino national anthem. My friends and I, who were born Canadian Filipinos, even though we were Filipino ourselves, we didn't really feel included because we didn't know that much Filipino compared to them. And till this day, some of my friends have that hatred towards Filipinos because of elementary. If my country has ever felt misunderstood, back then in elementary, because being Filipino was so popular, my non-Filipino friends would make fun of Filipino people and just basically our culture. I remember as a kid, during a class, my teacher would talk about how Filipinos eat with our hands because back then we were poor, we couldn't afford utensils, right? And then my friend who isn't Filipino, she said, oh, Filipinos are like gorillas. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? That's not right. So yeah, I felt like a lot of people in my elementary who weren't Filipino, and a lot of people who were Filipino but weren't Filipino immigrants, like they never really felt like they actually belonged because of the amount of immigrant Filipinos there were in my elementary.
Horrible. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, my elementary school was the worst.
And did you go there from JK all the way to grade 5?
Junior kindergarten to grade 8, actually. 10 years.
First of all, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Second of all, that is just so mind-boggling to me because I feel like in my school and just in general what I learned about culture here growing up, if you were born and raised here and you weren't that close to your home culture, you were more popular. The more, I guess, westernized you were, the more popular you were. I've never heard of a school where it was the other way around.
Wow, yeah. My elementary had a lot of downsides to it. Overall, I'm really glad that people from my culture were able to be open about their hometown. That's all I'm really glad about.
Positive mindset. I am curious though about your elementary school popularity dynamics, I guess.
Ooh.
If your teachers and the non-Filipino kids were making fun of Filipino people eating with their hands, but the popular kids were the ones who newly immigrated from the Philippines, was there like some sort of rift going on between these two groups that you were caught in the middle of, or was the most popular and everyone just listened to them?
That's a good question. Yeah, there were a lot of fights and grudges in my elementary, but I don't really think it was a culture thing. I feel like it was just one person in particular who felt that way. But yeah, no, everyone in my elementary just kind of hated each other, so it's just really well overall just my elementary.
That sounds like such a hostile environment to be growing up in.
It was not good.
As a child, you're already just learning and figuring things out. And to be stuck in that sort of environment, was there ever a time in your life when you were in elementary school where you just wished for something to be different in your school? And if so, what would that be?
Honestly, I always said whenever I talk to people about my elementary that there is some sort of like anarchy, and it would be like the popular people, the majority of them were immigrant Filipinos, people who weren't popular enough, and my friends and I were caught in that group. Yeah, a lot of people would mistreat us and talk behind our backs, calling us irrelevant and that we weren't as fun or funny. I wish we didn't have that. When people talk about their own elementary, I'm always so jealous because they're like, oh yeah, I was friends with everyone. Everyone was friends with each other because, everyone in the end is just kids. But unfortunately, my elementary was not like that at all. My elementary is honestly how high school is depicted as through the media, where there's like the popular kids and there's people who aren't popular, and the people who aren't popular get bullied. I felt like my elementary was more like that genre of high school.
Yeah, that's straight out of a TV show.
Yeah, but they just wanted to stand out and be cool, majority of the people in my elementary.
One thing that you said which stood out to me was that your school went up to grade 8. Because some of the drama you're describing is typical teenage drama. I feel like maybe the kids that were older were sort of rubbing off on the kids that were younger because they were in that like middle school phase going through that drama, and it might have trickled down into the younger kids.
Maybe, yeah, I think so, because I remember other grades older than us were pretty similar to our grade. I had a friend who was one grade younger than me who took the same elementary as me, and her grade was the complete opposite, so I'm not really sure.
And I guess it just takes like one or two people to really influence the whole group to act a certain way.
Exactly, yeah.
So, when you moved on to high school, what would you say changed in your school dynamics?
I was still around Filipinos a lot, and also majority of the people in my elementary went to the same high school as me, so in so freshman year, it was still somewhat the same. And because I had that transition from elementary to high school, I still had a part of me like from elementary where I felt like I wasn't enough. But because there are so many new people in high school, I got to meet people who have similar interests as me. Compared to elementary, there's not a lot of kids. So to surround myself with more people who I can relate more and be myself around, there's definitely a shift.
Are you still in touch with them?
Of my high school friends, or
Yeah.
I am, yeah. I love, and also my elementary friends as well. I don't want to like act like I didn't have any friends in elementary. I have a lot of elementary friends that I'm still friends with to this day, and as well as high school friends as well.
Because you guys all survived together.
Yeah, no, literally. We always talk about the horrors of elementary. It was just like shared trauma, kind of.
Was there a point in your life where you realized that this was not normal for a kid to be going through?
I realized that during elementary, when people would always compare my friend group with the popular kids or the people who are more popular than us, I'm like, we're literally kids. Like, none of us have reached puberty yet, and there's already separation. Like, what is happening? So, yeah, around grade 8, I already knew that, this was off.
Do you know where those kids are now?
I heard one of them went to jail. I don't know if that's true, but he did go to my high school, and a lot of them went to my high school, but then a lot of them also either moved from my high school or dropped out. Whichever it is, majority of them don't live in this neighborhood anymore. They all moved to Scarborough, I assume. So, yeah.
Criminal activity in your area?
No, there isn't. It's really safe. My parents have a daily walk every night at 8 p.m. It's pretty quiet. There's a bunch of old people in my neighborhood, so there's really no harm.
Oh, that's so interesting. It's like nothing is adding up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just my elementary, honestly.
Yeah, and the fact that the kids that were younger than you were much happier.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's because there weren't a lot of people in their grade. Because looking back at my grade, there is a lot of kids. So I think that's why.
That would make sense. I mean, Maryrose, I'm honestly still processing the stuff you're telling me.
It went from like culture to like therapy.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I'm sitting here like, oh, when I was a kid, I was so carefree, just living life one day at a time, and you were out here surviving.
Yeah, elementary was not it.
What were some coping strategies that you found to survive?
I don't know. I actually genuinely don't know, honestly. I think, as I said before, like, even though my friend group was treated pretty bad, I still had friends. So that was enough to keep me on my feet. And I had a loving family as well. And I was like, okay, things aren't that bad, right? Everything could be worse. So,
Yeah, so you basically had a really strong support system around you. Yeah. I feel like a lot of kids are going through not the exact same situation you're going through, but they're going through being down or pushed to the side, and not everyone has the privilege of having a support system around them.
yeah.
So when they grow up, their outcomes can be really different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that you had people around you who supported you and showed you that this is not normal.
Yeah.
Fall into the pressures of this society.
Yeah.
So when you came to university and you graduated from high school, how did your perspective change?
So when you asked that, I thought of like population because I grew up in Filipino high school and a Filipino elementary. So being surrounded by South Asians and Middle Eastern people, I was so happy. I'm like, I love my Filipinos, but I was so tired. I'm like, I need to meet new people because I love culture so much. I love looking into different people's cultures and whatever. But because I was so like surrounded by Filipinos all the time, I never got to talk to a lot of Middle Eastern people, a lot of Indian people. And so going into TMU and meeting so many other different cultures, I was like, oh my god, this is so refreshing. I met a friend who was South Asian, who was Indian, and just hearing her stories about the Indian culture is so interesting. And also meeting you as well, because I had a Muslim friend, but I don't know if she really practiced it a lot. But you definitely practice a lot of your religion, so it's very interesting, and I just love learning about new cultures and religions. It's so refreshing. My high school was actually known for being Filipino. Like my cousin, years ago, my high school was competing for volleyball or basketball with her high school, and my cousin, who is also Filipino as well, obviously, she looked at my high school and was like, wow, it feels like I'm back at home, or like this feels like a family reunion or something.
Wow.
Because there was just so many Filipinos.
It suddenly reminded me the Filipinos that I grew up with were always related somehow.
Literally.
I don't know if this is common in your neighborhood, but they would be like, oh yeah, that girl right there, she's my aunt, but we're the same age. Or yeah, he's like my second cousin.
So for me personally, when I said cousin, she isn't actually my cousin, like blood related, but I call older woman tita. Tita means aunt in Tagalog, and even though like I genuinely like don't know who they are, I always call them tita. I feel like it's just a Filipino thing. You call people your family even though they're not. Like the amount of people I've called my cousins, but they weren't actually my cousins.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
We have that in our culture too.
Oh, wait, that's so cute.
For titas, we say auntie, literally the English. And then, yeah, there's this thing where when you're like really close family friends with someone and they're around your age, you just start calling them your cousin. If they're your cousin, but you're like siblings, you call them your cousin brother or cousin sister.
Oh my, that is a lot of work. I'm so proud of you, Mevish.
You know what's crazy? If you have an aunt in English, you just say that's your aunt, right?
Mhm.
We have a different word if it's your mom's sister, or if it's your dad's brother's wife, or if it's your mom's brother's wife. Like, there's different words for each type of aunt.
Oh my. What is dad's sister?
So, a dad's sister is a popo, but then
Mm-hmm.
if it's your dad's older brother's wife, she's your tay. And if it's your dad's younger brother's wife, then she's your chachi.
Girl. Holy. That is a lot. Wow.
But I feel like maybe it's an Asian thing. I don't know. Because Pakistan's also in Asia.
Oh wait, what part of Asia?
South Asia.
Oh my god. Hey.
Yeah. Like, our regions are neighbors.
Hey.
Yes, you're my neighbor. Okay, Jumping back to the Philippines, someone from Toronto were to travel to the Philippines, what do you feel like is a culture shock that they might face, or even a culture shock that you faced when you would visit?
Yeah, so when people know you're a foreigner in the Philippines, I feel like they'll either decide to be nice to you or the total opposite. It really depends on the person, but Filipinos love foreigners.
Oh, what do you think is the cause of that?
Visa card? Green card? I don't know. Yeah, there's like a running gag in the Philippines where Filipino women tend to date white men because of the green card, which is actually kind of funny because I know a lot of Filipino women who have dated or married white men. So I'm not really sure. I think they just like foreigners and they just like people visiting and enjoying their country and their hometown.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like people who live in the Philippines want to leave and come here?
Yeah, for sure. To just have a better future, just have a better life, you know? Because obviously it's not the best in the Philippines. There's a lot of money problems. I remember back when I was in the Philippines, I was stuck in traffic on the highway, and beside me was an ambulance. And usually in Canada or in Toronto, whenever there's an ambulance, people have to pull aside to let the ambulance go. But in the Philippines, the ambulance was just stuck in the middle of the highway. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people would not necessarily want to move there, but would like it more here in Canada compared to the Philippines.
Yeah, in Pakistan it's very similar. People love their country, people love their own people, their language, everything, but it's just these small system problems there, and I feel like corruption is a big thing as well.
Yeah.
People are just so sick and tired of it that they just want to move somewhere where there's just some basic structure.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, and I don't know if this is true for you, but I know a lot of kids growing up here who were born and raised here are seriously considering going back.
Yeah, that was actually me for the longest time, actually. Back in elementary, when I visited the Philippines, I literally begged my mom, like, can we please move to Philippines? Every time I visited the Philippines, I literally begged my mom to move to Philippines because I just loved it there more than my hometown. And I think that's because I had more family there, actual blood-related family. Because of that, I felt more accepted in a way. I don't want to say that I didn't feel accepted in Toronto, but it's just that family bond is something that I can't really never achieve in Toronto.
Did you ever go to school there?
No, but I actually might next semester.
That sounds like so much fun.
I know, yeah.
And you get to go home to your family.
I'm so excited. I'm so most definitely excited for that.
That's amazing. It's so interesting to me that there's people there who want to come here and there's people here who want to go there.
Yeah.
It's almost like it speaks on humanity in general, that you're never satisfied with what you have.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, I totally see the pros and cons of both situations.
Yeah.
No, but that's great. I love that you have such a strong bond with your Filipino culture, even though you grew up in an environment where it wasn't really the most positive experience.
Yeah, most definitely. Oh my.
The whole point of this podcast is to give a voice to people of marginalized communities and really bring forward your story and what you grew up and experienced. And for anyone that might be going through a similar situation as you growing up right now, what would be a piece of advice that you would have for them?
Don't hate on the culture. As I said, during elementary, a lot of people hated or had some sort of resentment towards Filipino people because they were popular and there were just so many of them. Don't blame it on their culture, you know? They probably missed their hometown and being somewhere, speaking your culture in an open and safe space, you know? Learn to love. Loving is so important.
The power of love is definitely a huge part of your story. I mean, you mentioned your family bond with your relatives in the Philippines, your family bond here, your friend group bond here. Love heals.
Navish, that was beautiful. I'm gonna start crying. Wow.
It's your story. It's your story.
But you said it better.
Alright, so we're moving on into the last part of the podcast, and this is where we learn a bit more about Filipino culture. So I was wondering, do you know of any cultural outfits that come from your country?
Yeah, so there is a shirt. It's a formal attire for men. There's also a dress. There's a lot of versions of it, basically, but the one that I wore for multicultural night during my high school school had very specific sleeve. So the sleeve was a shape of a tombstone.
Probably seen on our Instagram. We do a little post sharing, what stuff looks like from people's cultures. If you could find a picture of this tombstone sleeve, I'm so interested to see.
Honestly, that's kind of what the one I wore looked like, but it's way prettier than the way I explained it. It's so gorgeous.
Is it like a formal dress?
Yeah.
Okay. And sorry if I butcher this pronunciation, but I saw in a show once that Filipino culture has something called a debut. Did you see that one?
Yes, I love debuts. So basically, a debut is kind of like a quinceañera. So for quinceañeras, they have a big celebration for when they turn 15. And debuts are essentially that when Filipina women turn 18. It's literally like a quinceañera. They have these things called 18 roses, where 18 men individually give the birthday girl, or otherwise known as a debutante, a rose, and then they just do a little slow dance in front of a lot of people. So I love debuts so much. In debuts, we have a thing called cotillions, which is basically like a group slow dance, essentially. And I was involved in 2 cotillions. I danced with my partner, and the debutante danced with their partner or whoever they wanted. It's such a beautiful experience, not only like culturally, but the connection of family and friends as well. During my debut, midway, when I looked at all the people who were invited, like all of these people were involved in my life from when I was literally born to when I was like 18. Every single person involved in my life was there. So it was a very heartfelt experience, and it's just so lovely to see everyone important and who've made a big impact to your life to be there celebrating your 18th birthday. And yeah, I just always love debuts. It's such a beautiful celebration.
That sounds amazing. I love that.
Yes. If I knew you in high school, I would have invited you to my debut.
And I would wear a parot saya to it.
Okay,
Would that be
tombstone
appropriate?
sleeve.
So for the debutante, what kind of dress do you usually wear? Is there a specific type?
Yeah, so again, because a debut is similar to quinceañeras, they have big, beautiful gowns. Oh my gosh, I love debut and quinceañera dresses. Yeah, it's kind of like a princess dress. It's like more out there than a prom dress or a formal dress. It is literally a princess dress, and it's just so beautiful.
I love it.
Wait, where did you hear this?
I saw it. Okay, I don't know if you've heard of the show Degrassi.
Oh, yeah?
So I started watching it because Drake was in it. Just like, okay, how was he as an actor? I got really like caught up in the story, and there's this one Filipino girl, and she has a debut, and there's all this drama going on during it. But it was really fun. It looked so pretty. Like,
Was your debut like similar?
well, from what you're describing, I don't think they showed the 18 roses. They just generally explained that it was just a really important milestone in a Filipina's life, and she needed to find a guy to be her partner for it. I don't know if that's necessary or not.
No, it's not necessary.
Okay, Degrassi is all about high school teen drama, so there was a lot of drama
Yeah.
going around that situation, but that's where I kind of got like a tiny exposure to what a debut is.
Okay. Wait, I love that. I'm gonna start watching Degrassi now.
Bro, it gave me anxiety.
Oh, okay, never mind. Wait, why?
Because like the kids are going through so much, and I just used to feel so bad for them.
No, that was me in elementary.
Literally. No, honestly, it's not a bad show. But then when Drake left, I kind of stopped watching.
You just wanted to see his acting. Was it good?
At the start, to be honest, he wasn't that great, but then he got better. I really love the character who plays the Filipina. Her name was Manny in the show. So,
I think I've seen her face before.
sorry, speaking of the culture, what is a favorite dish of yours from the Philippines?
I love sisig. It's roasted pork belly, and sometimes they add egg. Have you heard of halo halo?
Yes, remind me what's in a halo halo again? Because I know it's a drink, but it's a dessert at the same time.
Yeah, it is both a drink and a dessert. So the drink part is condensed milk. There's crushed ice, ube ice cream, leche flan, which is basically just flan. There's green beans, rice, there's other beans, coconut. It's very overstimulating now that I think about it, but it is so good. The Filipinos really love sugary dishes, so they have quite a lot of that. There's this thing called turon, and it's basically like a spring roll, but instead it has roasted banana. Yeah, they add syrup or something glazed on it, and usually when my family is over, we have sugary donuts. So they fry like really long donuts and put a bunch of sugar on it. That's also really good as well.
I love sugar.
You love the Philippines then.
I do want to go. I get videos of Philippines beaches and stuff on Instagram.
It is so beautiful. It's nothing compared to Toronto because their beaches are not polluted. They're actually nice.
Yeah, I know, they look so pretty. And there's just something about seeing a tropical tree. It just hits different.
Exactly. You cannot get that at Woodbine Beach.
Yeah. What about the entertainment industry? What's it like in the Philippines?
Ooh, I actually prepared for this question because I was watching your previous podcast. Currently, Filipinos are similar to K-pop. We have a lot of our own boy bands and girl bands. Their music and the way they present themselves in the media is exactly like K-pop groups. Filipinos love Koreans, so music is one thing that they really are inspired by.
I didn't know about that connection between Korea and the Philippines.
Yeah, a lot of Filipinos are very obsessed with the Korean culture.
I feel like the whole world is low-key.
That's so true, honestly.
Do you know any names of any bands?
There's one called Bini Bini, which is a new one. It's a girl group. They're pretty cute. I did go to a concert of another boy band. I was invited by my friend. I'll be quite honest, I don't remember their names. But they're a Filipino boy band, and they were really talented though.
I heard that dancing is a really big thing in your culture.
Yeah, that is true. My mom, when she was younger, she always wanted to be a dancer, and she loves dancing and cha-cha and line dancing as well. A lot of Filipinos, they love line dancing. Growing up as a kid, a lot of people always told me, "You're a pretty good dancer." I'm like, yeah, I get it from my mom. But I guess it's also a Filipino thing as well.
Now I need to see you bust a move.
Girl, no, it's okay. I forgot how to dance, honestly. I can't even move my limbs, so that was like years ago. It's okay.
Okay, fine, I'll take your word for it. One thing that I'm pretty certain of, though, is that karaoke is a big thing.
I was just about to say, Filipinos are singers. If you thought they were good at dancing, they are so amazing at singing. Do you know Lea Salonga? The one who, there are more people like Lea Salonga with her voice. Because in the Philippines, everyone has a karaoke machine, and every night you'd hear people sing karaoke. It's just a fun hobby that a lot of Filipinos like. A lot of the Filipinos I know can sing just amazing.
For sure. Do you know any other artists you can name drop that you like or that you know are really good?
Ooh.
Is one of them gonna be Maryrose?
No, actually.
Okay, so basically you need to pay to hear it.
Exactly.
It's not something you do for free.
It's not for free, y'all. I really like APO Hiking Society. They're pretty old, honestly. I grew up with them as well, so very nostalgic. They're really popular in the Philippines because a lot of Filipinos grew up with them as well.
Is there any way that people can connect to the Filipino culture while living in Toronto? Maybe from a restaurant here or a show?
Literally just come to East York. There are so many Filipinos. There are also the Filipino festivals in Toronto. Taste of Manila, that's a yearly thing in Toronto that a lot of Canadian Filipinos love to celebrate. There's a Filipino event in Nathan Phillips Square around the summer. There's a lot of Filipino food, a lot of Filipino vendors, as well as even Filipino clothes displayed. It is incredibly Filipino. It's called Mabuhay Philippines Festival, and they also have a bunch of celebrity guests as well each year. So that's true Filipino spirit right there.
Have you ever been?
Do I go each year? I actually went this summer.
Oh, which celebrities came this year?
Mm.
That tells me that they were irrelevant.
No! They always bring actors and actresses, but I'm not really into a lot of Filipino television, so I don't really know the name. And I think they were in that event before in previous years. I just don't know their name.
I see, I see. Well, Maryrose, I just want to say thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Thank you, Mavish. Oh my god.
So much fun laughing with you.
Yeah, I had so much fun with you talking. Just talking to you in general is fun. And I'm happy it's recorded and posted and everyone could hear it.
Before we finish the podcast, how do you say bye?
I genuinely don't think there's a way to say bye in Tagalog. They just say bye in a really strong accent. I could tell you how to say hi.
Okay.
It's mabuhay.
Mabuhay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? It's such a perfect way to end the podcast because it's starting our conversations that we're going to have.
Exactly.
Just the beginning.
A
All right.
beautiful way to think of it.
Thank you so much, Maryrose.
Bye-bye!
Bye. Bye.
Bye!
Thank you for listening to this episode of Hand the Mic Over. If you haven't already, check out our previous episodes on Spotify and YouTube. Don't forget to check Instagram at Hand the Mic Over for pictures from today's episode. See you next week!